1 year ago, my father tossed a crumpled $50 bill across the dinner table and told me that while I had technical talent, I wasn't leadership material. "You're great at building things, Ava," he said, slicing into his steak, like I was some intern asking for extra credit. "But people don't follow you, they follow Camilla." Camilla, my sister, who didn't even know what our company did until 6 months prior. The girl whose biggest career milestone was coordinating charity brunches for board executives' wives, that $50. It was his version of a thank you, a tip for the software I'd built that pulled Ramirez & Co. from the brink of collapse and pushed it into global profitability. I stared at that bill like it might catch fire in my hands. Today, I don't just write code, I sign contracts. I sit at the head of a boardroom table that bears my name, Orion Systems, and no one throws scraps here. Our clients include 3 Fortune 100s. Our valuation crossed $300 million last quarter. So yes, Dad was right about one thing. People don't follow me, they choose to. And that's something Camilla and he never understood. Let me show you how I got here. The dining room in our Seattle home hadn't changed since I was a teenager. Same towering windows, same antique chandelier that looked like it belonged in a European opera house. The table was polished to a mirror sheen, set with our best china. Everything screamed occasion. I thought this dinner was for me. We were thriving. The company I had practically dragged out of the grave had just landed a multi-million-dollar logistics contract with a European retailer. The code I'd built from scratch, our new supply chain optimization engine, had not only stabilized operations, it had made us a tech-forward firm almost overnight. Investors were noticing, press was asking for interviews. So yeah, I thought maybe tonight was the night he'd say it. "You did good, Ava." Instead, my father poured himself a glass of Bordeaux, lifted his fork and said, "We've decided Camilla will be taking over as interim CEO." Silence. Camilla blinked, then smiled like it had been her idea all along. She was in one of those power suits that scream, fashion first, not function. My mom, Lucia, said nothing. She glanced at me with that same nervous look she'd worn my whole life, like she was hoping I wouldn't make this harder than it had to be. "You're better in the background, Ava." Dad continued cutting his steak cleanly. "Your systems work is brilliant, but this company needs charisma at the front, vision. Someone the media connects with, and that's Camilla," I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "She understands people," he said. "She's more polished." I felt something crack low and silent, like a hairline fracture under a skyscraper. "You mean she didn't build a damn thing, but she photographs well?" Camilla didn't even flinch. She sipped her wine like it was applause. My father shrugged like my frustration was irrelevant. We all play our parts. He reached into his wallet and dropped a crumpled $50 bill on the table. "For your effort." The code, I mean. The bill landed between my water glass and my untouched plate. I stared at it for a long time. That's when I realized he never saw me as a partner. I wasn't a daughter either. I was a function, a tool. I folded the bill into my napkin, stood up. "Where are you going?" he asked, barely looking up. "I'm exiting the background," I said softly. "You won't even notice." Camilla let out a quiet laugh behind her glass. Lucia looked like she might say something, then didn't. I walked away. Heels clicking across the marble floor, I didn't slam the door, but something definitely closed. The next morning, I arrived at the office early like always. The sunrise was barely cutting through the Seattle clouds, and the building smelled faintly of espresso and industrial cleaner. I nodded at the front desk receptionist, but she wouldn't meet my eyes. When I stepped off the elevator onto the executive floor, the silence was different, not peaceful, tense, the kind you only hear right before something breaks. I passed a few employees. They looked down or away. Then I saw it. My office door was open. The nameplate that used to read Ava Ramirez, CTO, was gone. Inside, sitting at my desk with her legs casually crossed and a fresh coffee in hand, was Camilla O. "Morning," she chirped, flipping through a stack of documents like she'd been there for years. "Did Dad not tell you?" "I'm moving into this office. I didn't move. Where am I supposed to go?" She tilted her head, pretending to think. "I think they set something up for you downstairs. IT support or something like that. But don't worry, you'll still technically be part of the company." Her voice was sweet poison. I walked away without another word. Downstairs, in a cold corner by the supply closet, I found a folding desk. No nameplate, a basic laptop. No team, no title. I sat down staring at the blinking cursor on the login screen. I'd written half the systems that ran this building, and now I couldn't even access admin tools. No one came to talk to me. By 10 a.m., I realized they weren't expecting me to quit. They were hoping I'd stay quiet, humiliated, small. They wanted me close enough to claim my past work, but far enough to erase my future. I didn't cry, didn't storm into Dad's office. I sat there in silence the way they wanted. But inside, something was changing. I wasn't going to fight for space in a house that tried to bury me. I was going to build one they couldn't even afford to walk into. They'd just handed me the clearest signal I'd ever needed. I didn't belong here, so I'd build something bigger. And this time, it would have my name on the door. That night, I walked until my feet throbbed, past Pike Place, past the ferries, until I reached the edge of the park that overlooked Puget Sound. The sky was draped in that steel-gray Seattle mood clouds, heavy but not yet ready to cry. I sat on a bench alone, the cold biting through my blazer. The sound of water slapping against the rocks below was steady, almost cruel in how calm it was. I stared out into the fog where the water disappeared into the horizon and wondered if maybe I had imagined everything. My work, my worth, my fight. My phone buzzed, a text from Mom. I hope you understand your father's decision. Things are complicated. That was her favorite word when silence didn't feel strong enough. I didn't reply. A few feet away, an older woman in a torn coat shuffled past, pushing a shopping cart filled with blankets and crushed cans. She stopped, looked at me for a long second. "You don't look like someone who stays down," she said, voice rough but not unkind. "Whatever knocked you over, it hasn't finished you." She didn't wait for a response, just kept walking. I sat there holding that line like it might keep me from sinking. No, I wasn't finished. Not by them. Not by this. Somewhere out there was a future that didn't require permission from anyone named Ramirez. And I was going to find it alone if I had to. The cafe was nearly empty when I arrived, just the way I wanted it, tucked in the corner of Belltown. The place always smelled like burnt espresso and ambition. It had been my thinking spot during the hard rebuild days at Ramirez & Co., back when we were circling the drain and nobody else believed we'd survive. I slid into the back booth and waited. Jonah showed up first, still in a blazer, but now with a beard he definitely didn't have when he was CFO. He gave me a nod like nothing had changed. Priya came next, black hoodie, earbuds still hanging around her neck, always wired into something. She didn't speak, just sat and looked me straight in the eye. Deshaun strolled in last, carrying a greasy brown paper bag of fries he didn't offer to share. "You look like hell," he said, smirking. "Thanks," I replied. That's the energy I needed. We ordered coffee, no one talking much. They didn't need a pitch. They knew why I'd called them. We were the ones who had kept the company alive. And now all of us had been pushed out quietly or otherwise. I reached into my bag and pulled out a slim folder. Inside, sketches, data, a roadmap. Not just ideas, plans. The new version, I said. The one I never uploaded. It's faster, smarter, predictive. AI logistics, decentralized risk mapping. The real power we never got to release. Jonah flipped through the numbers, gave a low whistle. "And it's yours," I nodded. I wrote the original long before Ramirez & Co. touched it, and this version. No one's seen it but me. Deshaun leaned forward. "You trying to sell it to them?" "Oh," I said. "I'm building my own house this time. And I want you in it." Silence, then Priya smirked. "You had me at decentralized." Jonah closed the folder and slid it back. "Let's burn them down." We stayed for hours sketching the skeleton of what would become Orion Systems on napkins and receipt paper. No funding, no office, just us and a hell of a lot more to prove. By day, I was still the quiet ghost at Ramirez & Co. logging tickets for broken printers, pretending I didn't notice the way interns avoided eye contact. But every night, the real work began. In my apartment, the lights never went off. Orion was coming to life. The new codebase was leaner, sharper, ruthless in its precision. What used to take 12 scripts now took 4. It could forecast shipping routes with AI accuracy, detect bottlenecks. Weeks ahead, reroute resources in real time. This wasn't a tool. It was a weapon for any logistics company. Looking to dominate, Jonah handled the financial model, built lean projections with aggressive upside. Priya was in charge of integrating real-time data mapping, while Deshawn rewrote the backend to scale. Like wildfire, we met in coffee shops and borrowed conference rooms, even once in Jonah's garage. No one could know what we were building, not yet. 3 weeks later, we pitched it to 3 firms, all direct competitors of Ramirez & Co. The first exec who saw the demo leaned back in his chair and just said, "Holy hell!" The second called us the next morning and doubled the first offer. By the end of the 3rd week, we closed a $60 million licensing deal with a European firm that had once been on Ramirez & Co.'s short list of dream clients. Orion was live. I stood on the rooftop of my building the night the contracts were finalized, watching Seattle's skyline blink like it was nodding in approval. No press release, no grand announcement, just a name, a system, and a reckoning on the horizon. Camilla and my father didn't know it yet, but the software they tossed aside, the one they tried to bury with me, was now powering their rivals. And I was just getting started. Ramirez & Co. didn't collapse all at once. It unraveled slow, clumsy, pathetic. Camilla started strong, or at least pretended to. She posted selfies from the executive suite, quoted vague leadership books on LinkedIn, and hosted influencer-heavy mixers in the boardroom like it was her personal runway. But behind the filters and florals, cracks were spreading. She made decisions based on instinct, not data. Cut departments she didn't understand. Fired senior managers who challenged her, replacing them with college friends who thought a KPI was a type of yoga pose. The first client left quietly, a long-term freight partner from Texas. No big scene, just didn't renew. 2 weeks later, a European distributor terminated their contract due to evolving operational needs. Code for your tech is obsolete and your CEO is a disaster. The press caught wind. A headline popped up on my newsfeed. From heiress to hazard, Camilla Ramirez faces criticism over logistics. Chaos. I didn't click it. I didn't have to. In the office, whispers returned, those same ones I remembered from the dark days before my system turned everything around. Analysts walked on eggshells. Its staff kept resumes open in hidden tabs. I never said a word. Every morning I took the elevator down to the basement floor, sat at my corner desk, and answered support tickets for printers, and password resets. Like I hadn't built the empire above me. No one noticed. They'd erased me so thoroughly, they forgot to look for the one person who could see exactly how fast the ship was sinking, and it was sinking fast. One afternoon, I passed Camilla in the hallway. She was on the phone, voice sharp and brittle. "I don't care what the numbers say, just make the report look good." She didn't even glance at me. I smiled to myself and kept walking because I already knew what the next quarterly report would say. They were bleeding clients, they were bleeding cash, and they were already too far gone to stop it. I didn't need revenge. I had reality doing the work for me. The Tech Vision Gala was held in a crystal ballroom downtown. Glass walls, chandelier light like champagne on water, and every major name in the industry packed into rows of tuxedos and black gowns. I wore a dark navy suit, clean, simple, unmistakably mine. Orion had just closed its 3rd major international deal. The valuation had jumped again, $310 million and rising. The whispers had stopped months ago. Now there was only applause. When they called my name, I walked up to the stage. Steady heels, quiet against polished marble cameras, flashed. A polite wave, a breath. From the podium, I scanned the crowd, and there they were, Javier and Camilla near the back. He looked smaller somehow, shoulders sagging, eyes dull. Camilla sat stiffly beside him, her smile absent for once. They looked like they were sitting in someone else's story. Because they were, I unfolded my notes, then let them fall to the podium. I didn't need them. "I want to speak not to the visionaries in the spotlight," I began, but to the ones in the background, the builders, the midnight coders, the ones who were told to stay in their lane. You're not invisible, you're infrastructure. A beat, a pause. And one day they'll realize the foundation they ignored is the one holding everything up, applause real thundering. I stepped down from the stage, not with pride, but peace. They didn't have to applaud me. But now, they had to see me. My assistant's voice buzzed through the intercom just after 10. "Ence, Ramirez, your father and sister are here to see you." I didn't flinch, just looked out the window for a moment longer. Rain traced slow lines down the glass, streaking the skyline with quiet gray. Send them in, the door opened, and in stepped the ghosts of a legacy I no longer belonged to. Javier looked older, hollow in the eyes, the kind of tired you don't sleep off. Camilla trailed behind him, her blazer impeccable, but her hands couldn't stop fidgeting. They sat across from me like clients. Small, desperate, Javier cleared his throat. "Ava, we've come to talk. We Ramirez and Co. We're in a difficult position. We thought, maybe it's time we work together." I waited. "We're offering you a leadership role," he continued. "Something meaningful, second in command. Under Camila, of course, but with your mind, your systems. We could rebuild." Camilla forced a smile. "We need you, Ava." I folded my hands on the table. "That's funny," I said. "Because a year ago, offered everything. You gave me $50. Her jaw clenched. Javier looked away. I stood slow and deliberate. "I'm not here to rebuild what you destroyed," I said. Voice even, "I'm building what you feared." Silence, Camilla snapped. "God, don't be petty. You're just bitter because you weren't picked." "No," I said, walking to the door. "I'm just not stupid enough to sign up for a sinking ship captained by the iceberg." Javier stood too. "You'd let your family fail." "I didn't let anything happen. You made this choice. I just built something better." They stood frozen as I opened the door. "We'll remember this," Camilla hissed. "I hope you do," I said. And I closed the door behind them, not slammed, not shouted. Just ended. The boardroom smelled like old leather and failure. I sat at the head of the same mahogany table where I used to be a silent observer, the same room where my father once dismissed my value with a shrug and a crumpled bill. This time, I held the pen. Across from me sat the remaining shell of Ramirez and Co., a lawyer, Camila, and Javier, looking like the air had already left their lungs. The room was heavy with silence, broken only by the shuffle of documents and the tick of a vintage wall clock that was now 10 minutes slow. "You don't have to do this," Camila said suddenly, breaking the tension. Her voice cracked. "You won, okay? Just don't erase it." She looked different, smaller. Her makeup didn't cover the dark circles. Her voice didn't carry like it used to. "This isn't revenge," I said, flipping to the last page. "It's closure." Javier didn't speak. His gaze stayed fixed on the table. The man who once talked about legacy and control couldn't find a word for either. I signed. In one stroke, Ramirez and Co. ceased to exist. The lawyer collected the documents. Effective immediately, the company is dissolved. Assets transferred. Name retired. Camilla's eyes filled, but no tears fell. "You're really doing it." "I already did," I replied. She stood slow, stunned. "You're deleting our family?" I met her eyes. "No. You did that the day you decided I didn't count." As they left the room, Javier stiff, Camilla unsteady. I stayed seated alone with the silence. There would be no press release, no ceremony. Only this. A company built on my back. Now buried by my hand, the Orion Dev Lab was quiet that night, lit only by soft LEDs lining the whiteboards and glowing monitors. I stood near the glass wall, watching Nina work, headphones on. Brows furrowed, fingers flying over her keyboard, like she was stitching something magical out of silence. She was 17 when we met. First-gen self-taught, working nights at a diner to help her mom cover rent, but she could code circles around most of my former engineers. She didn't speak much, didn't ask for help, but her logic was clean, fast, sharp. I saw myself in her. The way she watched a room, the way she waited for permission that would never come, so I stopped her waiting. "Everything here is yours to use," I'd told her. "Don't ask permission, build." And now she was. In my hand was a note, creased formal, written in my Father's slanted handwriting. I don't expect forgiveness, but I hope one day you'll understand. I held it over the waste bin, struck a match, and watched the paper curl and blacken until it was just ash and memory, no bitterness. Just release. The city beyond the glass shimmered under the night sky. Towers blinking like stars. The air thick with potential. I let the quiet in. No noise, no guilt. No more shadows of their legacy. Haunting mine. I turned back to Nina. You ready to show the world what you've made? She looked up, nervous but steady. If you're with me, I smiled. I'm not behind you, I'm beside you, voiceover. If you've ever been dismissed, overlooked, erased, build louder, build so bright they can't ignore you, and I did. Now she will. And after her, 1,000 more.